So when I was 16 years old, I fell off a building with one of my buddies in high school, and I completely snapped my ankle in half. Well, welcome to the channel. My name is Joe, and on this channel, I help teach you how to faithfully follow Jesus. And today, in this video, I'm going to be sharing my own personal testimony and how I came to faith in Christ. So growing up, I grew up in a divorced home. So my parents split when I was about 2 years old, and my grandpa was actually diagnosed with cancer when I was about 7 months old. And that put a really big rift in my family from the beginning. It slowly led to the separation of my parents, and I grew up with visitation rights to my dad. You know, that was a really painful upbringing. My parents did their best. They loved me the best they could, and they are great parents, and I love them with all my heart. But I do recognize that part of my story is that because of the divorce, it caused me to seek answers outside of God, because I didn't grow up knowing God. It caused me to seek different ways on coping with my pain. And so some of those things were sexual promiscuity and identity crisis type scenarios. There was a lot of rage and a lot of pent up anger. I did go to family therapy for a long time. I did seek healing in different ways, but I remember growing up just having a lot of questions about myself and about who I am, why I'm here, what am I even doing in this life, and why do I exist, right? Every one of us eventually comes to a point where we start asking those questions of why am I even here? Why do I even matter? And so I grew up like going to church on like Christmas and Easter with like family, and we would like pray the Lord's Prayer every night, but it was never a relationship with God. I never like gave my life to Jesus, and I never prayed a prayer, and I never, up until the point when I was 16 years old. But at that point, a lot changed. But growing up, like, it was like, go to church, check off the box, just go with family, and like, I had this sense of a moral like compass where like I knew good from evil. My first time that I ever felt wrong about something was when I was about like 10 years old, 11 years old, and I had stolen from a store. I had told my mom about it. If you're going to steal something, I don't know. For me, the first thing is like not to tell someone that he stole something, but I ended up confessing to my mom that I had stolen something, and she walked me down to the store. It was a gas station, and this nice older Indian man had just talked to me about a train and a train coming. Like, it was giving me metaphors about a train coming, and I don't want to be caught on this train, and this train is the good train or something like around that nature. I just felt so much shame and guilt and condemnation, condemned for this act of stealing, but it was with my friends that I was with at the time. And I remember growing up going to the skate park with buddies, and I had a knife pulled on me one time. I got offered weed multiple times, and we started going like to church. We got invited to go to like a Christian non-denominational church, because the church we grew up going to was like Catholic in its roots. We started going to when I was like, before I was a teenager. And then it really started to like take a head when I turned 16. So for me, I do remember like getting baptized when I was younger and stuff like that. And I started to come around and understand like faith, the truth, and what Christianity is and what Jesus has done earlier than 16. But I remember it became very real to me at 16 when I was with a buddy, and we were going to this school across the park from my house, and we were jumping buildings and stuff. And we were doing some parkour, because it was pretty popular back then. Parkour was like jump buildings, do flips. It was just fun stuff for guys to do. And I ended up clashing with one of my friends, and we both fell off. He fell off and hit the ground and rolled through it, and I fell and caught the building, and then I lost my grip and I fell and broke my ankle. Well, that specific year, again, all that stuff in my childhood, the family stuff, the insecurity, the acting out sexually, I was bullied from fourth grade all the way till freshman year in high school. And that skewed the view of myself a lot. And I questioned my identity. I questioned my security. I didn't know who I was. And, I acted out in different ways through rage and anger, and I was addicted to different things, and pornography being one of those things was where I just coped and I found comfort, this false comfort and this rest. And I was so insecure about who I was, and I was so broken on the inside. I was like, man, like nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me, even though that wasn't true. I did have people in my life that loved me and cared about me. I'd convinced myself that nobody loved me or cared about me or was there for me. And part of my story is that when I broke my ankle when I turned 16, right before I had turned 16, I believe it was, I had been sponsored to go to a church camp, and I had been before. And I remember the pastor at the time was my youth pastor, and I love him to this day. And he had called me to the front. I was on crutches. I had just gotten surgery on my leg. A week after I broke it, they casted it. He had to reposition my foot. And then he did surgery, and he said, you're not going to walk for at least 9 months. I remember him saying that, as it was like a month before I left to this camp. Well, someone blessed me, paid for my way. I went free of charge to this camp, went to the front. Pastor called me forward, prayed for me. And I remember in one moment, I went from being on crutches, being told I wasn't going to walk for 9 months. It was going to be a long road to recovery and all this stuff. And I remember throwing my crutches to the side. I got on my knees at that point because I still had my boot on. And I remember like I felt this presence. I don't know how else to explain it. Like someone, like I had my eyes closed, but I felt like someone was coming up behind me and like hovering over me. Throughout my journey as a believer, God has always revealed himself to me through different feelings. So whether it's goosebumps, or I hear an impression in my heart, or I feel love for somebody else that I don't even know. It's always this feeling type thing. And I don't live my life by feelings, but it's one of the ways that God communicates to me. And in that moment, I felt this hovering and I felt this presence. And I visually, like in my head, I saw and I knew it was Jesus came, and he grabbed all of the things that were in my life at that point in time. It was all of the stuff, the brokenness, the insecurity, the pornography, the sexual sins, the baggage from family, the rage and insecurity and identity stuff. Like he grabbed it all and he broke it at my feet. And he was like, you're free. And for the first time in my life, it was like I had seen Jesus for who he was. I had seen all the stuff that I had put in my life and that I was bound to. And he said I was free. And he loved me as I was, but wanted to put his spirit in me and give me a new life so that I could walk in victory over the things that bound me for years. And at that point in time, I fully surrendered my life to Christ. I gave him everything. I gave him my yes. I gave him my time, my energy, my attention, my focus, my love, my devotion, everything that I was. From that moment, I remember it wasn't just a emotionally hyped moment. And I stood up from that moment, and I literally walked/ran around the room without my crutches, and I stood on it without any pain. And I remember being so excited and so emphatically like blown away that I had called my mom. I called some friends or something, and I came home, and the surgeon had put my x-ray up to the wall where they put the pictures of your x-rays. And he was like, yeah, your leg's like healed. And I remember I did have tendons that I tore in between. He was like, but everything else is like healed. He's like, so just take your time to walk on it. But I remember like taking my boot and throwing it in the dumpster. And that was such a powerful, life-changing experience for me. And I will never forget Jesus coming up to me, somebody that has nothing to offer him, that is broken beyond repair, at least in my eyes and in the world's eyes. It was like, this guy was bullied. This guy, had all this stuff happen to him in his life. And no wonder he's upset. No wonder he's full of rage. No wonder he, acts out and all this stuff. And it was like, That was when Jesus started to change every single thing about me, because I just simply gave him my yes, and I trusted in who Jesus was. And I said yes to Christ, and I gave my full allegiance to King Jesus. And from that moment, I can tell you the last 10 years of my life, I'm 26, I'll be 27 this year, has been nothing short of a miracle. God has slowly worked on things that he's asked me to hand over to him so that he can redeem it. And I started writing poetry after I got saved. I didn't want to be an architect or an engineer anymore. I gave up all my sports senior year of high school, and I started to fully follow Jesus and do what he asked of me. I took co-leadership of the Christian club at Vacaville High School on campus, and that was amazing. I went to Bible college for 4 years, got my Christian ministries degree. I'm on here teaching YouTube and doing teachings, poetry, and storytelling, because I want people to know about Jesus. And if you're new, consider subscribing so you can hear more stories like this. And God has used every bit and piece of my story to bring glory to his name. He's restored so many things. I'm married now for 5 years and been blessed with a beautiful wife, and we have a dog, and we're living with family at this point in time. But we are so grateful for everything that the Lord has done over these last 10 years, at least in my life. I'm grateful to the point where I can look back and be like, wow, I was an angry, addicted, rage-filled, insecure, did not know who I was person, to the point now where I'm like, I'm secure in who I am. I know that Jesus loves me. I am loved without condition. I am no longer a rage-filled man. I can attest to the fact that my wife and I have worked so hard at me becoming someone who can communicate my emotions effectively and in a healthy way. I can, regulate what's going on the inside of me and not have to cope and turn to addictive behaviors or patterns or coping mechanisms or habits in order to make myself feel okay. I can turn to Jesus, and he can be everything for me. And I don't have to find the answer within myself, because it's always found in him. The reason I shared that story today is for you to get to know me a little bit better, but to also know that I am nowhere near a perfect person. That is why Jesus Christ came and died for sinners just like you and me, and redeemed us and made us saints and sons and daughters that are blood bought. And we get to live this new life as Christians, Christ followers, living born again of the Spirit from above. And we get to live like Christ in our daily life, and we get to represent him everywhere we go. And I hope that my story of overcoming all of those things and allowing Jesus to be King and Lord over my life encourages you to also not just give yourself to Christ, but to continue daily allowing yourself to be changed more into his likeness, so that you can shine brightly for him in his kingdom. And when people see Christ in you, they glorify the Father in heaven, and they want to know, what hope do you have that I'm missing out on?